Hello, I'm Caroline Cabrera, Director of Education for Miami. The Greenhouse Teachers Lab is brought to you by Miami. These modules aim to provide teachers with creative writing strategies supported by a trauma-informed lens. Through projects, events, and publishing, we create a platform for amplifying Miami's people, investing in a new shared narrative of our city and a more equitable picture of its future. We believe that art and self-expression should be equally available to every Miamian. In this module, poet and teaching artist Anthony Torres and board-certified art therapist Deanna Barton walk teachers through the usefulness of guided visualizations as a tool for creativity.
So teachers, were really excited to share this module with you about guided visualization and how it can be used as a tool in your classroom for creative writing. So we know that in the free writing module, you learned about bottom-up and top-down techniques. And so guided visualization is a top-down technique that really invites your students to use their brain to visualize mental imagery and then to tap into their body to notice what comes up on a sensing or feeling level. We've also included a downloadable PDF that contains the script for the guided visualization that Anthony's going to share with us a little bit later. So I'd love to start off, Anthony, and just hear, how do you define guided visualization?
Guided visualization is a meditative and mindfulness technique that just helps us tap into our creativity and our imagination. Two great benefits of using this as a practice is creative emotional risk-taking, as well as the freedom of choice in writing. So it's very exciting that this is incorporated into a creative practice.
I love those benefits, and I also think about how guided visualization has this power to awaken the imagination, and I think that's really helpful for students' creative development and also can be a useful tool when they are problem solving. I'm also thinking about how some students might really struggle with guided visualization and this idea of awakening the imagination. And that might relate to those students who've experienced some type of traumatic event and tend to kind of disconnect from their mind and their body as a way to feel safe. So it's important, teachers, to remember that there are all sorts of experiences that a student can have with guided visualization. And I think you also mentioned that guided visualization is a mindfulness-based technique, and so this is a great opportunity for you teachers to practice mindfulness in your classroom and really help students tap into their mind-body connection.
A great way to get started is by leading a breathing exercise. Deanna, could you share maybe some of the benefits of using this as a tool in this process?
Definitely, and I just want to start off by saying I agree that grounding is super important. It's an opportunity to get your students centered and to ensure that their nervous system is calm. We invite you to use a grounding exercise that is familiar to you in your classroom, or you could use one of the grounding exercises that have been shared in other modules. So once students are grounded, what do you think teachers should do next?
It's just a great practice to engage the students in a conversation about this topic. By asking questions like, what is imagination? Why is it important? And how can we use it?
Yeah, I think that's an important discussion to have before you get started to really help them get the general gist of what visualization is about, and also to remind them that this is something that they can use outside of the classroom as a way to calm themselves and maybe access their imagination. I think it could also be helpful at this point to ensure that the students are really settled and calm. And so we might invite the students to close their eyes to participate, or if that's uncomfortable, we could say, leave your eyes open and gaze at something that's not distracting. And they could even lay their heads on their desks as long as they don't fall asleep. So Anthony, I think this is a great chance for us to hear the script that you've created for the guided visualization and maybe share any tips to help teachers get started.
Yes, and just a note to teachers, it's especially helpful to read this slowly, loudly, and clearly. For this example, I'm just going to read it straight through. Deanna, I'd like to invite you to help me demonstrate this activity.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So the first thing is to make sure you're in a comfortable seated position. And you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or have them at a downward gaze towards the floor. and I'll begin. Imagine you are in a room. Look around you. You see a door ahead. You walk towards it. Notice the details of the door. You reach forward and open it. The door swings open. You walk through the door into another world. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? Notice the season. How does the air feel? Just ahead you see a creature. What is it? Observe it. You can get closer to the creature if you'd like. Now return to the door and walk out of the world. Slowly open your eyes.
I really enjoyed that.
Thank you for joining me. This is a great time after the visualization practice to invite students to write poetry. I'd like to share an example from one of my students. The poem is titled The Milky Way, and it's written by Jean-Louis. I saw a door in a house. I opened the door and saw the Milky Way in space. I didn't go because I could have passed out from no oxygen and the weather. It was cold. I saw something. I didn't see it fully, but it had a purple eye flashing. I think this is an interesting example of exploring choice and freedom in writing.
We might also note that Jean-Louis didn't really go too far, right? There seemed to be a point where he felt maybe a bit of anxiety in the unknown. Maybe he knew what was going to come next, but he didn't feel comfortable sharing that in his poem. So I think that's okay, right? And maybe this is an opportunity to have some peer-to-peer sharing where we would invite Jean-Louis to share with a classmate. And the classmate, after hearing that poem, may be able to invite him into some conversation to go a bit deeper into what happened next, or what did you notice, or what did you feel? So bring in a little bit more opportunity to tap into the body, tap into feelings, and also maybe bring some emotional literacy into the process.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'd like to share another example. This poem is titled Sister Cat by Flavia. I was in a room and I saw a door. It was super weird. The color was gray, and when I opened it, I saw some toys. There were spiders, and it was scary until I saw my cat. I started crying. I went blank, and I was back in my room. I'm never going to forget my sister cat. I love you.
Aww.
I think this is a beautiful example of creative emotional risk-taking by the poet.
Definitely, and if we compare that to Jean-Louis's poem, she definitely went there and felt more comfortable sharing something as, personal as grief and loss. So this is an opportunity for you in your classroom to make space to express those feelings and to explore something like grief, which definitely connects and relates to many of our students' experiences. And I also think it's an opportunity to normalize the experience of grief and loss as part of, the whole spectrum of human emotion.
I'd also like to mention that many of my students wrote poems about many joyful and happy experiences, including their favorite desserts, favorite toys, and candies. We just wanted to highlight a few examples showing kind of the wide range of experiences that might be shared.
I think that's important to note, that not everything is going to be heavy, right, and super emotional. So to wrap things up, this is also a point in your classroom process where you should just take some time to admire the bravery and the courage of your students to go wherever they were willing to go, and to remember that creating space to be vulnerable and to share openly helps cultivate a safe space and can really strengthen those connections between yourself and your students, and also peer-to-peer.
Lastly, I'd like to share that all the tools used in this process can be personalized and adapted as you see fit. And I just also wanted to mention the most important part of all of this is don't forget to have fun.
I agree.